Look at us grannies trying to figure this out. Why is it telling me it's recording if it's not recording?
Got to be a hit.
Hopefully we find it.
Otherwise, you missed me bitching at a lot of people.
I was wondering what made you want to participate in what I'm doing.
I mean, I'm always excited whenever I see someone queer, fat, marginalized, talking about our issues. I mean, I don't think there's enough conversations being had like this. I mean, and I love you. I mean, really, this is truth. I mean, every interaction, every moment I've ever glanced at you, you've never done anything but put a smile on my face. You really are a special human. So it's very easy for me to gravitate towards
Elena, you're going to make me blush. It's lovely to hear that because I feel the same way about you. And I think it's funny because we only met maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
2 years ago.
And I actually have so much affection for you in ways that there are people I've known for a decade that I kind of vaguely know. And I'm like, eh. And so sometimes it just happens, you know? Who is looking on and who doesn't know who you are. Could you do a really quick intro about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, okay, sure. I'm 56-year-old Butch Dyke is how I have always self-identified. I've been out for 37 years now, so, and always proudly and very loudly out. So my experiences go back to the 80s and they're varied. I've done a lot in my lifetime. My early career started in corrections and then...
Wow!
Yeah. So, and then I became a singer and was an artist, a traveling singer, performer for 10, 15 years. And then I jumped backstage and started directing and producing. And since that time, I've directed and produced television, theater, large festivals, outdoor, indoor events. And now at this age, I'm somewhat semi-retired, but that's mostly because of my health and things I've been dealing with. But I still consult and I do a lot of mentoring. And I'm still doing some project producing. And it seems that at this point in my life, it's all a lot more meaningful than it was before. Before I was just paying my bills, and now I'm actually choosing what I want to put my time and energy and power and privilege into to try to help move, all of our communities forward as much as possible. So that's me in a bit of a nutshell. I'm married to an incredible trans human, Cara, artist, activist, Dr. Cara Tierney. Just recently got a PhD, I know.
Yay.
Yeah, seriously. So, and I live out in the woods in Quebec, just now half an hour from Ottawa with 2 very old chihuahuas and 2 cats. So I'm your typical dyke, really, in that sense. And you know me because I also produce these queer mega markets with queer vendors and artisans in Ottawa, and that's where I found you and your partner. And anyway, so yeah, thank you for having me here with you today. This is really awesome.
No, I'm so glad to have you. Before we got online, you sent me a list of questions and I kind of shortlisted some that I thought we could look at. You had said that these questions were ones that you had put together as part of a questionnaire.
Yeah.
What kind of work were you doing for that?
And thanks. I'd love to certainly name drop my collaborators, Namitha Rathanapillai and Emma Lind, who together with me created a questionnaire that we then distributed to self-proclaiming fat artists in the art sector in order to get as much feedback and information as we could to try and make some positive change in the art sector, essentially. Thank you, Leah, for putting yourself out there because, our brothers and sisters, they need to hear us and they need to see us and they need to know that we're, as much as we struggle, we're thriving as well.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons why I started doing what I'm doing is just that there's not that many voices out there contradicting the mainstream narrative. And the ones that are often, if not deplatformed, then really deprioritized in algorithms and stuff. If you search for health at every size in YouTube, it's all people being reactions to delusional health at every size influencers and it's just the narrative is so intense in that one area and there's just really nothing to counter it. So I was I know there's other people like me out here. I know we exist, but the more that we see that experience being deprioritized, the more we kind of are like, maybe I will just become a hermit and never be visible to anyone ever again. And you see this happening with people. They just sort of, their world gets smaller and smaller, and they just don't feel like they have a community in any way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we need each other now more than ever. We really do. It's about building, maintaining, and powering up with positivity our communities, lifting each other up and holding each other's hands. I just want to say, like, I'm comfortable with using the word fat, okay? But yes. I mean, I'm very aware and mindful of and that not everyone is, but I am. So when you hear me talking, and you already have heard me use that language, I'm going to continue to use it because that's language that works for me and that I own, that I empower as much as possible.
Yeah, same. I think one of the weirdest things actually is for me is when people like start using these euphemisms and stuff, and I'm just like, no, just say fat. Like, it's fine because it doesn't have to be an insult. It's like just a descriptive word. It's fine. That kind of actually ties really well into like the first question that I was going to discuss with you, which you had asked in your questionnaire, like, when did you realize you were or are fat? There are two different pieces to that question to me. So like, when did you realize you were like a person who was fat versus thin versus like, when did you realize that like fat was like an identity? And like, when did you own that word is like two very, very different times for me. And I wondered, different. Is that true for you as well?
Absolutely. There's like 40 years difference between those two. So realized I was fat in like kindergarten when the kids started calling me fatty 2x4, couldn't get through the kitchen door. And my mother was a big woman too. So I had that visual of seeing her against other parents and knowing that she was fat, and she often talked about being fat and having to lose weight. And I grew up in this like fat and weight loss culture my whole life. Owning it, talk about it like I'm fat, I'm cool with this, let's do something about this and that. Like, that's just in the last 10 years. But being out and like having lovers and partying and being a professional and being out in the world and like pushing my way, that's been always. But that's more a personality trait, you know what I mean? So because of many other reasons, I'm a survivor of very young childhood sexual abuse as well. So I think I've just always had my dukes up. And so I was like, yeah, I'm fat. What the fuck? I think, yeah, it was progression for sure. And it wasn't all at the same time.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was almost everything you said. I was like, yep. Just because like, yeah, like I grew up in a family that was my father was kind of the poster child for the idea that humans contain multitudes. You know, he was actually pretty like pro-fat, but also like unironically watched Fox News and complained about bleeding heart feminists. So like, this is just like a really complex man. And at the same time, my mother was always dieting. And so I think that like in the home, we didn't really talk about fatness a lot. And so it wasn't, as you say, until I got into like kindergarten. It's really, like, it's hard to raise a kid in a broader society that has those beliefs. Even if you do everything right at home, they're going to go out into the world and experience this stuff, right? So it's really pretty pervasive. Like you, it wasn't until much later that I kind of embraced fatness and was like, no, like fatness is fine. Like it's okay. And I think a big chunk of that was just sort of understanding that there is like a counter narrative of like, fat doesn't mean you're ugly. Fat doesn't mean you're going to like die really young. Fat doesn't mean that like all of these things that we hear all the time, that we actually have a lot of science-based evidence.
You're not going to get a partner. You're going to be alone. You're going to just live with your cat and eat and eat and eat.
I must tell my husband he doesn't exist.
Right? Very, very good-looking partners.
Oh. Yeah. And honestly, not that it matters, but much thinner partners, right? Like both of us. And so like there's this weird idea that the only way that fat people will have a partner is if they're also fat people.
Absolutely.
Which is not at all true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Good point.
That actually ties really, really well into the next question I wanted to talk about, which is, how do you find fatness impacts and influences your other identities such as race, gender, sexuality, ability? And that immediately made me think of this thing where you're gay and they sort of have this like, of course you are.
Right?
And it's like, I think what they mean by that is like, well, you'd never find a man is sort of like the idea, right? And it's like, are you suggesting that like men don't settle but women do? Because I'm sorry, have you met straight women? Most of them are settling pretty hard because men suck really bad. Most of them anyway. How would you answer that question? Like, how do you think that kind of intersects for you?
Oh my God, it's such a loaded. Let's break it down a little bit. I think because of my personality, so I've always been fat. People attracted to me because of my personality. So yeah, size on an intimate level hasn't been an issue for me.
I think probably like I feel it a little bit when I think about like being queer, in that like a lot of the mainstream visible queer narrative is like cis white gay men. And I know that in that culture there's a lot of fat phobia often. Like there's this real like gym culture and stuff. You see a lot of dating profiles where guys are just like, what is it? No femmes, no fats, no Asians is like a really common one. Which like all three of those I could write a book on, right? Like not cool. When I first was coming out as queer, thinking about entering this community was really scary because that was sort of the narrative I was familiar with. And I kind of thought to myself, I can't see myself in this. And then of course I got into the queer community. I was like, oh, why are we only talking about these guys? Right? Like that's actually just the tip of the iceberg. That was sort of my main like hesitation as a queer person. But I've actually found that my queerness has brought me into a community that is generally more accepting of fat people. I do think that queers are more accepting of fat people generally, and just like bodies in general because of queerness.
So I think it's the more educated queers that are more political queers that are more academic. I'm saying the same stuff, but I think there's some really like advanced feminism that is like accepting of all people, all colors, all sizes. So thank you to all you academics that force these kind of ideologies out into the world, where equality should be had for everyone. Because I think the queer, like if you go to any of these queer dance parties or whatever, I mean, you don't really see fat people out at these places.
Right.
And I don't think and I think it's for a reason. Even the bars or events you don't really see fat queers out that much. That's why I'm always excited when I do. So, and I think that's from years of not necessarily being included, or at least that's the experience I've felt. A lot of spaces I didn't necessarily feel welcome or invited to, and just owned my space, and that became attractive to people, but my fatness wasn't attractive to them for sure. And I still deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because there was, I was going through the list of questions and there was one around like, when you're invited into an art space. And I just thought about it and I said like, I'm not often invited into an art space. Like I'm thinking about like uploading these YouTube videos and stuff, and it's like, I am here and I am proclaiming that I am here to stay and I have this to say and so on. And so I think like, just like the fact that we're so often not invited into these spaces is kind of the issue as well. And that once we're in these spaces, it's very clear that at least to some people, we are really not welcome there.
Constantly. And again, I think I forced my way into the art sector. Absolutely. Because of my fatness. I don't think I was like sought after in any meaningful ways, but I do get invited into art spaces because over the years I've forced myself into the industry and made a name for myself in that industry. So I am invited. And you know what I find every time? They don't want me there. No seating. Because there is no accessibility, and it's so obvious. I just went to a big art event last week. 300 people stood for 2 hours, 3 hours.
Oh
no, couldn't even sit if they wanted to. So, and sometimes they'll roll out chairs and they're these crickety little things, these little plastic folding chairs, because they want them light so it's easy for the staff to carry them and put them away. But if I sat on that, I'm going to hit the ground. So I'm not sitting on your little lawn chair you put out for your audience. And in fact, I kind of look down on you as an organization if you pull out crap like that, because it's just, it's performative. It's not meaningful. I don't have any time for performance in that respect. Yeah. When I produce events, the chairs are big and they're
Yes.
comfortable.
Yes.
And in my home, all my chairs are big and comfortable. And when I go to other people's homes and their chairs are rinky dink and little and wooden and 40, 50 years old and they're just like wobbly, I kind of do. I'm like, wow, you clearly don't have fat friends and you don't want them, because if you did, that would show in the environment that you create as an organizer, as a person in your own home. I mean, when someone walks into your space, whether that's work or personal, someone like me, a fat person who walks through the world this way, I quickly get a read on you.
Yeah. No joke.
You know?
I think I'm going to start doing that, just judging people for their folding chairs because I hate them so much.
Oh, I just want to pick them up and start throwing them.
But like, you bring up a really important point, which is that like, you do organize events and you are so inclusive in your organizing. Like, I remember when I went to your first event, it was like probably 2022. So it was kind of like the tail end of COVID. It was like most of the danger had passed, but there were still some people concerned and stuff. And at that point, even, you were one of the few events that had mandatory masking.
Yeah.
For people who were concerned about like COVID or other like transmission or whatever. And I just think that like, looking at events like yours, where it's like getting a couple of like econo packs of masks and handing them out at the door, like, why would I not do that? And it's such a simple thing to do, but I think that like, most people just can't be fucked, I guess, is the impression I get.
Yeah. And I mean, you nailed it. I mean, what do you need? Oh, well, okay, I can do that without much trouble. Oh, here you go. I mean, that's really my politics. It's the same with, it's harder for marginalized vendors to show up at markets because they can't pay the table fee and stuff. And okay, well then it's free. So
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I think it's just like, it's our own kind of politics. Like, are we on the planet to be kind and to be open and understanding and try and make other people's lives nice and joyous and better? Or are we just here for ourselves and like, get out of the way, it's all about me? Maybe in my younger life, when I was really surviving and not thinking as much, maybe I was one of those too. But now I'm not, and I'm fully on board with not being. Now I'm like, what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do to make your world, your life, your experience here or anytime better? And if I can, I'm on it.
Yeah, no, same. I think that's super important. I was wondering, I've suddenly become very visible on YouTube because I'm uploading these, that there's still these people who are like clinging so hard onto this idea that like fat people should be bullied on the internet. And I'm just wondering, like, why do you think that is?
Oh yeah, well I say it all the time. I'm like, fat jokes is the very last still acceptable form of bullying allowed. Like, we can't say anything about women anymore or people of color, like, not we, but anyone isn't, like, it's like everyone gets attacked for anything inappropriate except fat jokes. We are the last acceptable form of bullying. I mean, which gives me hope, like, hopefully that will be, I mean, it's starting slowly with, again, these smart people in the world who are trying to get the messages out to everyone else, like, it's not nice. Be nice. Be kind. Mind your business. And stop thinking you know what's best for others. I mean, don't get me started, Leah.
Isn't that what it's about getting us started?
Yeah.
I think like what you're saying about that is so completely true. I call fatness the final frontier. As in like, when you're like, I used to actually say that like disability and fatness were kind of the final frontier. Like, it's still perfectly socially acceptable to terminate a pregnancy if you think the child will have Down syndrome, for example. So like, disability is kind of wrapped up in there a little bit. But I think like, if you went on, like, I was just thinking of, I was watching a clip the other day. It was, political commentary by like, I can't remember if it was like Seth Meyers or like Jon Stewart or someone who's like very left leaning. And then in there was a fat joke. And I'm just like, you have these very progressive people who are like, let's not be racist, let's not be sexist, let's not be transphobic, let's not like, and then, but they're like, fat people? Fair game.
Jumping on to like the weakest link, just like, this is the only thing we're allowed to still, I'm sorry, not allowed. I don't yeah, you're cut out because opinions out there are varied and there's lots of them and most of them are really from inexperience and from a place of privilege and low education.
Yeah.
Not being nice. I mean, I'm sorry, like we are in a world where people are, they're like almost proud to not be nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's really sad. I feel sorry for those fools.
Someone once said to me, if you look around and you think everyone's an asshole, maybe you're the asshole.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.